Hello, everybody. Hopefully you can hear me. You can't see me, but you can see adorable sister kittens being adorable sister kittens, which they are not always. There's sometimes some little tiffs and whatnot. Oh, you know what? I can't see if you can see or hear me because I forgot to start my browser. So please excuse it. Just enjoy cats for a minute, and I will start up a browser so I can look at chat. Kind of, So you know how sometimes you have these things that if you just change one element, it's like a row of dominoes and everything else changes? This is apparently what my video setup is like. So I noticed that the lamp is a clamp on, and I do not have an ideal desk for clamps. I typically don't like clamp style lamps and accessories, so I didn't think about that when I got the desk. It's got a glass top, which I thought the advantage of that would be they'd be easy to scrape and clean off putty and gunk and whatever I might do the desk. And then the glass is supported. There's like 4 round metal discs. Actually, there might be more than 4, but there's at least 4 round metal discs on each edge, and then there's like a rim of metal structure underneath it. And this makes it kind of challenging to get a clamp on, because you can't clamp directly to the glass. That does not, like, you can see it bend sometimes. Actually, I can see the glass bent under my monitor right now. So you kind of have to clamp between the glass and the metal frame, and it's not ideal. Actually, I think that they're just clamped on the metal frames. It's not ideal at any rate. And now I've ordered another clamp lamp because when I saw the one in the Game Envy Kickstarter, that looks like you can really, like, there's multiple little light panels, so you can kind of adjust it a lot. So I'm hoping that will help me be able to adjust so that you can see better and I can see better. Because what we're going to discover is that, and I think I had this a while back, the right side of my miniature is going to be more lit than the left side because I can't lean the lamp back. So it's very adjustable. This is the red grass one. Other than, even this is like a big desk. It's almost as wide as if I reach my arms out side to side. But I kind of have to scooch over to the right because I can only get the lamp kind of lighting the right half of the desk, and then that doesn't leave enough room for all the other things. I'm right-handed, so I like to have like the controls and that kind of stuff. They're very exciting right now, aren't they? They kind of turn into one mega cat. Anyway, so hopefully things are going to look okay today, but if it looks a little bit different, that's why. Also, I did not, as I usually do, shake my paints, so I will need to do that as we go. Let's switch over so you can see cats and miniatures. Move the cat cam a little. I wasn't sure if they'd want to be together or one each on one of the bed places. They've been giving me the impression that they thought this bed was not big enough for both of them now that they're big girls. It was their birthday on the 10th, so they're officially a year old and not eating kitten food. I mean, they're always going to be my little babies, because that's how that works. Even Giant Corbin is my little baby, whether he wants to be or not. So what we're missing, I have to switch between cat cam or palette cam. I may switch briefly to palette cam, but I'll probably just put some paints out and try and get some paint on my figure that I will reveal momentarily. Let's see. So if you follow artists on Instagram or someplace like that, you may have heard people talking about mermaid. And I know that there are mermaids in this house, and they have wished to elude capture. I 13 minutes before I had to start setting up, so it was 13 minutes before his meeting. Yes, year-old baby kittens. My husband's like, well, what about the stuff in this closet? And I'm like, yes, it's the thing. It's probably in that bottom box. But I elected to not grab that bottom box. But what I did find from the Bones 5 Kickstarter in the Dreadmere box is this figure of Merceluth. Now, I think this is supposed to be a statue in the description of the story. It's like a part of a shrine to her. But there's also a description of what she looks like in her various avatar forms, and this one is the creepy one where she's got like seaweedy hair, and these are moray eels, and so not your nice pretty style mermaid. I'm going to paint a creepy style mermaid, which is an interesting adventure. So I think I will actually put some paint on and then talk about the colors that I decided to use. Now, unfortunately, I do not think that you can buy this one on the Reaper store at this time, but if you want to make any other of the mermaid, and there are several, and mermen, merpeople, there's a variety of merpeople, creepy, this will give you some ideas for doing that. So if you're familiar with the Sons of Bardi, and I'm trying to remember if they're for sale now, I meant to look at them, I forgot. They're like her favorite minions and stuff. So let's see. So I've picked out a selection of like greens and pinks and like magenta purple and then lavender purple. And I threw a few other things inside. I've got my Beyond the Kit as well. Because I have an idea of what I want to do. Will that idea work? I don't know. So one thing the description mentions is that this is a black pearl. So if I want to make sure that that stands out, I probably can't paint her with a really dark skin tone. And then I also have to distinguish these moray eels. So I decided to go with the pale fish belly type of skin tone for her. I know I put those paints in here. So I decided just to go with a bunch of Pathfinder paints today too. So Mana Waste Gray, I'm going to have to get darker than that. I grabbed Midnight Blue, Bruised Purple, and what else did I grab? Rotting Wood. So I figure between those, I'll get some kind of shadows going. Then for her hair, that's supposed to look like, wet, gross seaweed. Yeah, I thought, so I'm going to have to go with not in production paints right now, but we've got Black Pearl from one of the previous Reapercon sets, Burnished Platinum, and then if the Burnished Platinum doesn't work, or, to get that real white spot, Pearl White, which is in production, and then probably Nightshade Purple for shading, because it's almost black, but it'll still have a little hint of purple. I was debating using Raven Feather, like I did on that owlbear, but since this one's called Black Pearl, I'm like, well, clearly that's when I'm supposed to do that. So I thought I would do the tail, similar colors to the hair, but I'll paint it differently. That's more for the eels. So I'm going to try, well, let's slap some color on the eels. So that, a bit of, which one was it? I think it was that. There's a particular eel I looked at. Unfortunately, it is once again one of those, it's not on the free picture sites, but what I did take a picture just of the color samples, so I would be able to, I thought I would use black indigo for shading too, but I probably only need the Nightshade Purple, but it might, adding a little bit of blue in her skin might make it creepy. So I'm trying to make colors that are disquieting, but aren't totally like clashy. So we'll see. A bit of clashing to make something disquieting is probably effective, but if you go too nuts with doing the opposite of what the color theory suggests, that might get dicey. My sponge is also new because I've been struggling with my sponge, so I will be interested to see if that helps things stay wetter a little longer, and just in general. Let's put those back there. I think I'm going to need that Nightshade Purple for sure. Probably shake your pants longer than I am impatient. But I will, I don't know about the black indigo yet. We'll keep that to the side, but I do think that adding a little bit of blue might help with, you know, creepy undeadness and whatnot. Well, I don't know that she's undead exactly, but she's not a nice god. Her cultists kidnap people and sacrifice them to her. See, I clearly didn't check that one enough, so go over to the side more. This is rotting wood. I know, I'm being wasteful. I'll mix it together. I'm wasteful so that you don't have to be. I will do the experiments and screw things up. No, the nights, that stuff is for, well, except I said I was gonna probably paint those guys, didn't I? The metallic I will probably do last. If I'd found more of a classic style mermaid, I had intended to do probably the tail in colored metallics. But since this one is supposed to be creepy and there's the pearl, I'm going to keep the pearl like unique in texture, I think. So all of these might need to be grayed down. Well, okay, not that one. That's pretty gray. Especially when I start getting to the colors for the eels. But these are all colors that gray each other down. And I will talk about that more later while paint dries, I think. I'm probably just going to make her eyes like black pit style eyes. Oh, right. I normally don't leave these here because they might still focus. Excuse me. Apparently, it's been more than a week since I did this. It hasn't. I've forgotten everything I know. So, I'm just, this is, I believe, just standard bone. No, I guess it's Bones Black. But even regardless of what material I'm painting, I consider 2 coats to be like a minimum foundation. So I kind of just want to get some paint on here and see if some of my color ideas are at all feasible or not. So I'm not going to be fussy or precious. I am going to give up on the notion that I can paint a mini or most of a mini in a show, and I will probably start doing like a few continuing episodes, not necessarily, you know, the next week all the time, but I think I want to get some stuff finished up. Okay, the focus is, I think it's too bright now is the problem. All right, let's try. That seem a little better. I mean, that is a very bright skin tone. I'll probably start her a little darker. It'll start to come together. You know, I think the focus will start to behave once additional colors are on there and it's got more to compare with. Zachariah is saying 2, 3 at the most should provide coverage. Yes, I like 2 not only for, you know, getting opaque paint or whatever, but just to get a solid paint film, which I think helps make a more protective surface for handling the miniature, whether for gameplay or just general handling. I'm just going to put the, what was it, Nightshade? What is that purple called? Yes, Nightshade Purple, that I'm probably essentially using as my black, although if I have to, I can get out real black or my old buddy blue liner if I need to for like really deep shadows. So I want to get some of this dark color in these shadows, but I don't think they have to be like pitch black or anything. Since she's going to have a pretty fair skin tone. I will just stick some under here. I probably should have filled that. I didn't. Maybe she's about to rise up off this rock. Or I will fill it later. I have no intention of really working on the rock today. Like, it's not going to be that gray, but it's going to probably be some kind of gray. Or I don't know that I'd want to use too much green directly on it, or then her tail won't stand out as much. But that the base, I have decided, is a problem for another day, basically. So I am not going to sweat that. And then that means I'm just creating something that you have to watch me solve later. Or watch me flounder and not solve, as the case may be. But it's no, I mean, I've painted things and then stuck putty or gel or whatever under them. I forgot I had my little gel. I did get rid of a few mold lines, and then I gave her a little bath in isopropyl alcohol to get off any gunk that there may have been from me or the factory, or just any type of greasiness or powder or whatever. I like to do that, and I think it helps the bones. I seem to be moving up for some reason. If I keep doing that, I'll move my chair back a little. I totally tested this before, but I was kind of freaking out about, like, I don't understand why I can't kind of have it like it was. So the distance of the cameras changed, the angles changed, like everything changed. I also considered I believe they're called sirens. And May's not over. Maybe I'll try one of them too. They were cast in transparent blue, which is interesting. I was wondering if there might be a way to like paint some and leave some the blue. Several of them are not Twitch compliant, so I picked out one that was. But she has legs, so I don't know. I don't know if she's like mermaidy enough. Oh, see, now I'm getting mixed up between what is her arm and what is an eel, which I think is part of what's fun about this sculpt. So that's, where does her other arm go? Well, maybe it's just under her hair and I don't need to know. I'm fine with that. That is more tail colored, I think. So I'm not really worried that the crevice stuff is getting on the lighter stuff. It's probably the color I'm going to use for shading anyway. And this is just the first pass. I can work on that bit later. But let's look at, oops, great. Now I put more water into my paint, which you can't see because I am still letting you enjoy crazy little kitties. Yeah, see, this one's now like, oh, I don't have enough space. I'm gonna roll all over you. Let's try this for a first coat. I forgot that rotting wood, while a great color and handy for shading, is handy for shading because it's somewhat less opaque. So I'm going to make my own more opaque version, at least for this first coat. So maybe I should switch over to, no, that, well, we can look close up at the palette for a minute. So this is the rotting wood that's a little bit transparent. This is the rotting wood that's a lot transparent because it has medium and water in it. And this was something else. Olive drab? Was it? I don't feel like it was. Yes, it was. Okay, so that's olive drab. So I took a little bit of this nightshade purple and mixed it in. And because those are both already somewhat desaturated colors, it's not going to make like a nice pretty gray. It's going to make a blicky color, which is what I want. But I'll also put some olive green out for a little more yellowiness. And for curiosity, let's find out what we get. Yeah, see, that takes a lot of the yellow away because purple and yellow are complementary colors. Let's try with the bruised purple. And yeah, that's nice. I like that. So creepy, but not totally desaturated. So we'll probably have some of that on here as well. Then I'll go, right, she's got some tail back here, and I mean, I could do weird things with that. I don't know that I will. Maybe we'll just make it a little lighter in color, so we'll go with this green instead of the darker one. So this is really just, it doesn't have to look great, and it very much does not. It's kind of like proof of concept more than this is, I'm trying to do amazing painting right now. I'm very clearly not trying to do amazing painting. Because now you're all learning the truth that I cannot really stay in the lines unless I'm super, super careful. And I often do paint very messily in the early stages. Because why make everything stressful and fiddly until it has to be? So that's, I am also learning that this is going to be a tricky area to paint. One surface or the other here is going to be hard not to get paint on. You see, I just got some green paint on my eel. Which, what was my eel color? Sorry, there's a cat here somewhere. I just saw it. Well, it is what it is. That's actually not even dark enough. The kind of main body of the eel that I found that I thought was interesting is very dark, but then it's got like areas, it looked like it was orange to me, and I did my little color sampling thing to discover that it was not orange. It was more of like a purple magenta or pinky, kind of a skin color, almost like a very bright peach or bright rose skin color, but not, it looked much more saturated because of the contrast with the dark velvety purple, and it really does look velvety, I think, because of those color contrasts. So I wanted to kind of explore those a little bit. I should have written down something that would make it so you could Google search that picture that I have more easily. But since I will probably have to work on this another time, hopefully I will remember to do that another time. Okay, those are her fins. Got a little bit of a puzzle element here. For me, at any rate. I'm not saying that everyone would struggle to figure that out. Zachariah M. Speaking of out-of-print paints, I have one of those pearlescent scarab bottles, and it's in good condition. Yes, long, long ago, and was trying to work on a pearlescent paint to add to the line. And it just ended up not being feasible for various reasons, I believe. But a few of us had like sample things to test, that her scheme that she'd kind of come up with as a concept, at least. And I'm not sure if I found it in the end and it wasn't the case, but when I first opened my suitcase, I couldn't find it. And I was like, and I, of course, had one of those, we searched your bag, you very suspicious person, notes in there. And I'm like, did the air marshals really either, covet or decide that my iridescent paint was like a hazard to people or something? Like, that just seems crazy. But I think someone else gave me their bottle, is why I still have some. There are a lot of pearlescence and color shift and shimmery options available in like craft paint and artist acrylic and stuff, because I think, if anything, that kind of thing is only a hotter trend now than it was before. I just watched, so there's this thing, apparently, this might be the first year they had it since COVID, I'm not 100% sure, but it's called Creativation, and it's held by NAMTA, which is the North American manufacturer. I don't know, it's art and craft supplies, basically. So like everything from, fine art store paints to supplies that people use in like scrapbooking and card making and those kinds of crafts. And it's an industry show, so it's not like ReaperCon or Gen Con or something where you can just go. You have to be, usually it's just buyers for stores, so either an independent art and craft store or like Michael's and Joann's and all those guys. But they had started like a separate membership thing, separate fees and stuff for people like YouTubers and essentially people who do arts and crafts, YouTube and blogs and stuff like that. So a number of those people did footage at the show to like show you the booths and the new products, and like there was just so many new things. Like I said to my husband, you're not going to believe that I said this, but I think there may actually be too many art supplies. Like, it's like every company has to make their own version of fine liners and whatever else the hot thing is, paint pens and brush pens and all this stuff. So then everybody's trying to get on that wagon. There's just like so many different ones. But nonetheless, I kept watching. I watched a couple of different people's coverage, and then one person who instead of filming there, they got a lot of samples and brought them home and then did like a big unboxing. But you actually don't even get, it was interesting, they were saying you don't even really get a lot of samples because most of the booths are set up as an example of, well, here's how you could display our products, or we also sell you this display unit kind of thing. So it was more like people who came on the very last day. Towards the end, some of the booths would give their stuff out to influencers. I mean, I'm sure partly so that they didn't have to bother taking it back home, because there were a lot of companies from like China and Japan and Korea, and I'm sure that is not cheap to get that stuff home. Never mind even the regular not cheapness of shipping around America that some of them will have had to deal with. So it was just kind of interesting getting a look at the various things, and you can kind of see trends that are hot, like attempting to be environmental. Whether it actually is, how do we know? But so there was everything from using more recycled products in packaging or trying to reduce packaging, changing packaging to paper, other things that I think are excellent ideas. But there were at least 2 different companies that, one of them was, I think it's Liquitex, is doing like a plant-based, so the whole paint isn't plant-based, but 40% of the acrylic paint is plant-based or something. And then the other company that I think, it's one of the ones that does craft store paints, Deco Arts maybe? They, or maybe it was even a completely different company, they collect house paint somehow. How, I don't know. My city, there is no way to recycle it, to donate it to, Habitat for Humanity. Like, we have some paint left over from when we renovated, and my husband really wants to get rid of it. And so I was like looking up all these things to see, well, can we do that? Because some of it, like, there's a couple of full containers of paint. And for whatever reason, at least where I live, which is in Tennessee, there's no way to pass that on to someone else. Goodwill won't take it. The city doesn't take it. So I don't know where these people are getting the house paint, but supposedly they are taking house paint and they take out anything that's noxious and they turn it into like consumer usable. Not that I think there should be a ton of noxious things in acrylic house paint, but I seriously doubt that house paint companies are using expensive pigments like cadmium any more than anyone else is doing it. But maybe there's some kind of additives or whatever. But anyway, this paint is supposedly, 70% or X amount reclaimed acrylic paint. So what our city does say to do with it is basically dry it out. So just open the can, turn it into solid acrylic, and then just throw it in the garbage because it's no longer, once acrylic paint dries, it's dry. So it's not going to mix into the water supply or do anything terrible, presumably. But it does sadden me that there are a lot of things. Like if you go on the internet, I'm on this a couple of decluttering groups because, I have some decluttering to do. And people will ask about something like that, or like old blankets or old pill bottles. And people will say, oh, you can take that to so-and-so, or you should donate that to this, and they really want those. And a lot of times when I research it, the place is like, please don't. Please check with us. Don't do it. Don't just bring us crap. We don't actually use it, or it's not sanitary, or like some reason why they are not doing what you thought they were doing. So I think the best way to kind of help the environment is to make good choices about what you're picking in the first place. Like, try to buy things that have less packaging, only buy stuff when you need it, that kind of thing. But as far as decluttering goes, it's like, if whoever is stuck cleaning out my house, if I died tomorrow, if I got run over by a truck or something, would just throw it out because it's too much to deal with, why don't I just do that myself? Like, if it's going to end up in a landfill anyway, it's staying in my house, is not helping the earth. It's hurting me. That is sort of my philosophy. Zachariah, my friend's HOA collects the paint from their residents. So you can get the color of the day from them if you need paint, if you're a member of the HOA. I am strongly opposed to the concept of HOAs after the stories I've heard. I do think that's great, and I hope that they are at least offering more services like that for the money and the harassment and stuff. But we are not HOA compliant in any way, shape, or form. Like, we would just be constantly inundated with letters explaining what we had done wrong and please fix it now. So I'm very happy that our house is just in a neighborhood where I'm sure most of our neighbors detest us, but they can only really get interventions on that if we break actual, like, bylaws or something. All right, I'm trying to get back to, which one is it? Hold on. Because look, they're being cute again. They're all snuggled up. So I will switch back to cat mode for a minute. Reaper Miniatures says I could do a whole visual video of just mixing colors all day. I would enjoy that. I think that there's some really interesting things about mixing colors, and that miniature painters who don't have much of an art background are sometimes like freaked out about it, and that I know I did when I first started painting. I like kind of blew it up in my mind to this way more, I don't know, complicated and precious and something process than it actually turns out to be, when it really, like, just throwing some stuff together and seeing what happens is a valid method, and there are guidelines that will kind of give you hints about what should happen. It's not always going to happen, but you know, I didn't test mix any of these colors before I started painting, just based on, you know, studying the color wheel and experience. Now I had an idea of what would happen, and I'm like, well, I need to have bright enough colors that it does the brightness, and then just know that I can tone it the heck down if I need to, and I'll just fake it from there. My moray eel picture did not include fins. I think it's just like his head sticking out of a cave the way they do. So I'm pondering making the fins kind of more with the pinky things to bring that out somewhere else. So in the picture, it's like mainly just on his head, I think. All right, where have I not put paint? So yes, it's kind of blowing out a bit on camera, but that light face is going to be neat. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to try going to, I thought I had a filter. Oh, I have to select the specific camera. Hold on. I'm so talented at this. So let me go here. We'll take the brightness down some and see if she flares out a little less. I think we can even go a bit more. So I have like this little sub menu that comes up, and then it's got a mini version of my screen, but when I'm trying to just check like one tiny thing, it is not super helpful. So I think that's a bit better. I mean, her face is very light. Zachariah needs to show me the swatch board that they made in Paint Club. I would like it. I think that is so cool. And he is also lives outside of those HOA places. I'm very anti-HOA. Sing it. My house is okay from an inventory perspective, but the 10 by 20 storage unit of miniatures, yeah, it would overwhelm folks who know about miniatures, let alone those who don't. Yeah, we don't have to be exhorted to let your yard go natural and stuff like that. We don't care about any of that stuff. And because we're decluttering, there's sometimes like stuff at the top of our driveway, which is like, I don't know how many feet. It's like 4 houses back from the road. So like, and we live on a hill. So you kind of have to be looking for the worst. I mean, other than the forest part, which is really right there. The worst bits of our house to, well, those probably are her. All right, did I miss any? Yes, I missed this guy. Little Finny place. Those bins. And those are places that you would be touching. You know, like pointier places are places to make sure you have a nice solid coat of paint on, because they're, you know, very easy to rub off. Typically I paint hair last for that reason, because I'm going to end up going like that on her. So I think let's just get a little bit more down on there. We need to do some drying, and then I'll talk about my colors a little bit while there's some drying, and then I'll go back and like try to do a slightly more refined coat. So the way her face is super bright like that, it's not like if I'd mixed up like a full spectrum from there to there, it would not be weird to start the face a little lighter. I've heard it referred to as the halo effect or the Jesus effect, where partly you're drawing people's eyes to the face by having it slightly lighter in value than the rest of the skin. Because it's like, if she had legs, do we care about her calf? Like, baby, I want to tone the paint value and the contrast down on the calf because, like, I don't want you looking there when you don't need to. Reaper Miniatures got an email with a picture that I need to cut my yard on a Wednesday. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to cut it this weekend. Calm down. Yeah, we had our neighbors who on one side are very, they're retired. They take a lot of good care of their house. I'm sure that we are a nightmare to them. I'm pretty sure it's them that they had the Noxious Weed Act invoked on us. So we just had to tidy up the yard a little bit. Because I've also, that lady had a thing with the people across the street from her, and they were horrible. They were horrible people. They were horrible to their pets. Like, we just did not like those people at all. They let their dog run around, and he would come in our yard and yell at us. And they had a little girl who already had like a leg issue. She had a prosthetic leg. I'm like, and you're training a guard dog? And then they started being mean to their other dog that they had when they got the guard dog. Anyway, there was a feud between those two neighbors because they had a moving van. They had like a 3 guys in a truck or whatever it is, moving van, that they would park on our street, which is very much a residential street. And where they parked was a blind curve. So that lady took them to the county. I don't know what it was. Like, we went to a county counselor's meeting, and basically as soon as the counselor saw the pictures, they're like, yeah, no. Because the people were kind of like, well, the guy next to us or down the street has his own plumbing business and he parks his van on the street. It's like, yeah, it's a van. You have a literal semi. So no. So I know that lady would do stuff like that, but I did go with her and testify, and then they shoved a beer can down our sewer, but that's a different story. All right, so talking about the colors. I wanted it creepy, but still some color. In fact, if anything, I think I probably need to add a little bit of color to this. Like, I will maybe keep her tail a little brighter green and, you know, make her hair sickly. But we'll see. You need color on stuff. But you may remember in previous episodes, I was talking about how you can mix green and purple and pink, and you get really attractive grays. And that was, in this case, I was using pretty saturated colors. So it was like violet red or witchcraft purple, maybe. I think it was witchcraft purple, and then some of the brighter purples, or less pink purples. They were darker but less pink. And, you know, really nice rich greens. Somewhere I had a little test paper. Let's see. Do I have a test paper? This might be it. No. I know I did. So I keep all these things, and then I can't always find them for you again later. Yeah, this is it, actually. So these are the kinds of colors I was mixing together, and you get these like really nice. That doesn't look as nice on camera to me, but this is a nice, like, it's not purple, it's not black, it's not green, and that's kind of a similar thing. But when you started mixing the ones that had more, you know, white and other things mixed in with them, you started getting more sickly colors. So I was picking things for this where the colors were fairly pure, and then I'm picking things for the one that's supposed to look all spooky and gross, where the colors are less pure, so that I will get some, you know, grossness. And you may remember this guy, who before too long is going to become a critique example as we head into ReaperCon, so that you get some idea of issues that the judges may or may not see on various miniatures. And that's in another, like the greens I think are similar to the ones I've here, and the shadows are mixed with the purple. And then I don't know, I guess that pink green combo, if you go look at Clever Crow Studios on Facebook, you'll see that Michael Proctor uses those kinds of colors a lot, and he'll do a similar thing. He'll use like nice version. He does purple and teal a lot too. Nice versions for, you know, characters that are good or more natural animals, and then the desaturated, more contrasty, you know, maybe some bright pink and then some duller green or whatever versions for like the Cthulhu monsters and stuff that he paints. And I still like that kind of the little teal blue, so I threw some teals in my, you know, the teal green contrast. I threw some teals in my box of paint right before I came in, and then not this version, so it's actually the one that's on the site, not this version. This was the, if I was to paint this again, but quicker tabletop, so I used paints off the shelf for this. So this is an episode of the show somewhere, not last Halloween, the Halloween before, so that's going to be on YouTube, not on Twitch now. But for the like studio version, I mixed almost all the colors from the orange, the green, and the purple. And that's a secondary color triad. I mean, that's a valid way of doing it. Zachary was just looking at Michael Proctor's Shub Cthulhu paint job. And then I thought I should go creepy, because if you've been here recently, you've seen me painting Starburst, who I'd hoped to work on this weekend, but I don't know, my back's still a little twitchy, and then also my husband has lured me back into playing Baldur's Gate 3, so I do a lot of stuff this weekend. But I did finish Act 2, I think. Alright, why does it still look... Alright, we'll move the light a little. I think that helped. So, are things adjacent to her skin dry enough to paint? I think they are. Fake it. Looking for my mixing brush. As I think I was talking about this last week, that using a mixing brush is one of the few things I do, you know, to be nice and try to preserve my brushes. So let's try a bit with that purple too. And I figure I can add other, you know, I often add other things into skin. Oh, I kind of like the bluishness of that. Later. So I do stuff in the shadows. So I'm not expecting whatever happens straight out of the gate to necessarily be all that it takes to make me happy with skin. And I can make it, oop, that's the wrong purple. I can make it creepier later. This is like a much messier palette than I normally have. It's disquieting. So where is that color? Is it that one? I don't think so. Now I've lost my mind. Here. Nope, that's metallic. Definitely don't want to do that on skin. It's probably like behind something and I'm just not seeing it, because I do that all the time. Wasn't? No, because that's the pinky one. Wasn't midnight blue, was it? Let's find out. I really don't think so. Was it? I don't know if this ever happens to you, where you can't remember what's on your palette. We'll switch back to me struggling with my palette. Alright, I think it's that color. So it turns out I couldn't find the purple because it was a blue. And that might be why I like what it's doing with the skin too, because that's why I took out that blue, was because I thought it would make for some interesting sickly skin colors. I'll just have a little bit of a variety pack here. then actually for highlights, I wanted to mix in a little bit of yellow. For hopefully additional contrasty creep factor. Probably I need something more in the middle, don't I? But that needs to have more purple, I think. Wow, that mana waste is a strong color. The fun of color mixing is that sometimes you mix forever, but you know, it happens. If I was to do a color mixing thing, I think I would probably use this camera because it's set on an angle, so hopefully it would get rid of the glare on the wet paint. See, now that's probably too dark. Oh well, we'll figure it out. But I need a better brush. Did she get tired of you squishing her? Yeah, I think she did. Cause look at you. You like to do that. The one in the whiter box is the ridiculous one. That is her whole thing, just being ridiculous all day long. Right, Boo Boo? Yes. She's also like, I think she might be one of those very loyal cats. Like wherever I go, she's in the room. She's not always on me, but she's often on me. She's always asking me to do stuff for her. The other one's a little more independent, and she's like super into sleep. Considering her age, like she's maybe too much into sleep. It's like, dude, you're a year old. You probably should stay a little more awake. But I think she would say that I am not the boss of her. Why am I starting with places that still have wetness? What an excellent question that I don't have an answer to. Well, partly I'm trying to start in an area that's not super conspicuous. She doesn't have legs. I would often start on legs, but not having legs is part of her whole deal and why we're painting her for Mermaid. Because, you know, it's good to start somewhere inconspicuous. I don't know if my value structure is correct. You know, my color mixes, maybe they're too far apart, maybe they're too close together. I never really know until I start putting paint on the miniature. Because things always look a little different on the palette. Even, I mean, it'd be nice to have more of a gray palette. That helps. You know, everything looks so light on the white. But, I mean, so far so good. I think that this part right here should actually be green. But since I do care more about the wet paint at this stage, I'm not going to attempt to address that. I do need a little bit darker of a color for, oops, crevices. Ah, see, that it's good I wasn't on palette cam right then, because you didn't see me throwing my brush around like I do sometimes. So I like this whole triad actually, but they are kind of, they're not strong colors. So when you mix, typically you need a higher proportion of those than others. But sometimes that is a little bit of what makes them easier to deal with for some situations, I think. Hopefully, I think I might be diluting my idea. Well, we haven't got to the more saturated purple, but it was kind of like a more magenta leaning purple and a more blue leaning purple. I wanted to have both of those on there somewhere, because sometimes colors that are kind of closer together actually don't harmonize as well. So that could kind of increase the, gross disquiet factor a little bit. Yeah, there's a chunk. Oops. Chunks are bad. So I will have to be careful here as well, because there is still some, I don't know, yeah, you can see that little shine in there where it's still a little bit wet in the crevice. So I don't want to activate that paint too much. Generally, in real world everyday painting, I recommend not being impatient and waiting for there to be no shininess on your miniature if you're not, you're not doing wet blending. But I tend to be, oh, hey, Rune B. Fourth Street. Thank you for the raid. Welcome to the Reaper Miniatures channel. I do stuff on Monday afternoons here. And then there are other people who do stuff at other times. Like Anne's here every weekday from, so these times are, clearly this setup is not perfect. All right, let's see if I move that a little. Does that help? I think we got to work on our face soon. And now I've put the light in my eyes, so that's not going to be good, because I won't know what I'm doing. So I will just add a little bit more paint there, and then we'll let that dry. And let's address the face and see if we can take it down enough to not glare out on the camera. I want to see if I can give her that kind of goth makeup around the eyes thing, but it's probably gonna have to be, if I really want to make her eyes like super dark, which let's go ahead and get a little bit of that in there at least. I'm not gonna be able to go too dark on her makeup, or that will be hard to tell which is which. I think I can turn this down a little. Let's see if that helps. I will try to work on my setup next week. I don't know why I can't have a setup stay functional for very long, but apparently I cannot. Get some of that yellowy color on there to hopefully be creepy and whatnot. but it is also bright, so that's not going to help. What if I... Okay, that might have helped. Let's see. Making this more... My apologies. Making this more level. And then making that be more shaky. Yes, hold on. My apologies. You are not at the carnival, I promise. All right, that looks less glared out, I think. She is very pasty. I might take that down a little. But it's also what's going to help her stand out from some other things on the miniature. Like the pearl that will eventually be a black pearl. Much later, at the end. The black pearl is not coming until the end of painting because I'm going to use real metallics and I don't want to get flake anywhere but where we want flake. A little highlighting on the chin. That side of the chin is really tucked down. That whole side of the face is going to be fairly shaded actually. So I don't want to be too light over here. I just kind of want to fix anywhere I got more of the nightshade purple than there needs to be. Or anywhere I didn't get enough nightshade purple where it needs to be, turns out. Let's add a little more shadow. Dramatic lighting definitely only increases creepy factor. I mean, it can increase other things too. But dramatic lighting is something I will want to talk about at my ReaperCon class, which I know what it is. I just was working on something else for Ron, so I didn't have time to submit stuff yet. So if you were wondering, if you were signing up for ReaperCon classes and you noticed I wasn't on the thing, I wasn't on the thing. You weren't imagining it, but I am coming to ReaperCon and I am teaching classes. And the topic will be faces. Like next level faces, so not a little past, you know, once you've kind of feeling solid with the basics, how do you start upping your face game? Face painting game. I'm not going to tell you how to make faces. That's something you can research yourself. Reaper Minis, yours are going up in the second wave, I think. Yes, hopefully I will get the description very soon. Because that's really the main problem. I just fill out the forms and I like to write a nice descriptive description so that people know whether the class is for them or not. Although I don't mind, and I imagine that the same is true of the majority of instructors, if people want to contact me and say, you know, here's my level or here's what I'm looking to learn, is that what's going to happen in your class? Do you think your class is appropriate for me? I would rather help you figure that out at like now before you sign up than have you get there and be disappointed that it's not what you were hoping for, or it's, you know, not as advanced as you wanted, or it's more advanced than what you wanted. It's really hard to just, like, everyone uses the terms beginner and advanced, and we all kind of have different ideas of what that means. So I don't think that those, you know, just using the terminology is that helpful. I think it's better to kind of talk about, well, I would expect that you would have skill with this kind of technique. I'm not really going to be teaching the technique. I'm going to be teaching, here's how you use this technique to do something else, sort of thing, is how I would prefer to kind of talk about, is this class appropriate for you or not? Because it's been my experience that people are like all over the map in how they define something. Like if you've only ever been painting like in one store and you have like among the nicest minis at your store, but you just use techniques like washing and dry brushing, you may think of yourself as intermediate. I may think of your techniques as things that are more beginner techniques, so that would be a mismatch in communication if we just use those words instead of me saying, I expect you to know some kind of smooth blending technique like, wet blending or layering. To attend this class, I'm not going to be covering how to do that. Because I learned some years ago that just assuming people would figure out that such and such was a more advanced technique is not helpful to anyone. I was teaching transparent cloth, which is still, I think, the topic I find most challenging to do, to teach as a concept. Partly just because of the language, like the vocabulary is weird, because you have to explain this part and this part and this other part and this other part, and there's not really formal terminology for any of those things. So it's these awkward word phrases. But there's some conceptual stuff too. And I was teaching it at Gen Con, and people at Gen Con are a little more, back then, probably you can't just walk into things anymore. But back then you could just like pick up tickets, the weekend of, or sometimes the day of. And I had a couple of people in that class who really only knew very basic tabletop techniques, and I was not covering technique at all. I talked about you can use glazing to do this, and I always demonstrate glazing because that's one of those things that I think we do have different differing terminologies on. So I'm trying to make this little space between her eyebrows a bit darker. It will make it look like she's frowning, and very small changes on female faces can make them look like more intense in emotion or less attractive, crankier. I'm not sure what term to use, but we kind of, as a culture, what we consider to be a beautiful female face or feminine face doesn't have a lot of expression. So when you start having more extreme emotions, like if I start painting lines across her forehead or whatever, she would start looking a lot more hag-like, which maybe, is appropriate for this figure. But if you've ever had a figure where you're kind of like, well, she's supposed to look like, a very attractive woman, and I don't know what I did, and it may just be like a line on the forehead, or, the wrinkle, if I really put a lot of shadows in it's a nasal labial fold, so the line, your cheeks are very full, and then you've got that wrinkle that goes under your cheeks from the corner of your nose down beside your mouth. And if you look at a lot of people, it is actually fairly prominent on a lot of people, but we're used to seeing like models and actors and stuff where they've either used makeup or flat lighting to minimize that. And, if we accentuate that on a little miniature, like you imagine if this face was blown up and I went really dark in those areas, which I'm actually going to go darker because she's not supposed to be all pretty and stuff. She's supposed to be like, look how creepy she looks, kind of in that 3/4 view. So let's just go ahead and put the darkest shadow in and see what happens. And it's probably a little too much. I'm going to have to tone that down. But if you imagine doing that on you know, someone that you're trying to paint as the fair maiden to get rescued. That might be why your fair maiden isn't looking as fair as you thought she should. And that's kind of why, you know, a technique like washing and dry brushing is challenging for something like transparent cloth, because you have to do some more subtle effects than you can get with washes and stuff. But then on the other hand, I don't think OSL, which a lot of people think of as like this advanced technique, you can totally do OSL with dry brushing and washing. I did it. That was what I did last year at ReaperCon. Because that's just about knowing where things need to be darker and where things need to be lighter. And if you apply those principles, especially we painted a Yeti, we painted a big furry guy, then you can totally make that work. So that's the kind of thing where I don't want to rely on just saying, you know, beginner, intermediate, or whatever on a description, because a lot of people are going to look at that and assume that it's too advanced. And so I went in the description and I'm like, that's what I said. I'm like, you can do OSL with dry brushing. Come to this class and find out. We're going to talk about light principles and we're going to dry brush this Yeti. So I like to put quite a, because I get frustrated when I'm signing up for classes if the person is barely putting any information in. It's like, okay, yeah, I know who you are. I have an idea of what I think this topic is, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm on the same page with you. So could you please give me a little more information? Which the times I've been most frustrated, the people are typically not native English speakers, so I understand why they're not writing long descriptions. But still, they know English speakers. Get them to help you out and write something nice for you. Like, especially, you know, every year the cost of attending classes at most cons goes up. Hey, Ultra Squid. So you gotta let people know what they're getting for their money. I'm trying to decide if she needs more forehead intensity even than that. She might need a little more. That's the other thing I think that's trickier between female faces and male faces is often you can get away with dry brushing and washing. Like you've got a male face and it's, you know, he's frowning and he's got these eyebrows and he's got all the wrinkles around his mouth and his nose and his forehead, and it just looks cooler if you have more contrast and sometimes if it's rough. But a feminine face won't look feminine if you approach it the same way. You've got to have kind of more subtle and delicate transitions between the shadows and the highlights and stuff like that. I'm just going to add the line of shadow, which is from the hair falling over the face. Lining is realistic. That's kind of my crusade in miniature painting, is to prove to people that lining is realistic. But also it really starts to accentuate the lightness of the face versus the mid-value of the hair and the darker value of the dudes. Zachariah. Jeff Davis has a very accessible technique. I've seen him teach on OSL, which I don't know what topic. I assume he's coming to ReaperCon this year. I don't know what topics he's teaching this year. I think he also does stuff now on the Miniature Mentor channel. I think he has like a paint along figure that he works on every week or every month or something. But I do have the memory of a Swiss cheese, so I could be mistaken. Miniature Monthly. So that's a Patreon to check out, and then that Aaron Lovejoy is also part of that. Well, probably the main organizer, and Matt DiPetrio has some more advanced topics on there. So it's like a real range on Miniature Monthly. All right, so people typically have eyebrows that are like a little darker than their hair color. So I'm going to try making a darker green. I'm questioning whether this is actually my good brush. If you're a longtime viewer, you know I've discussed having a method of distinguishing which is my current more precise Winsor Newton brush at various sizes, and then I never actually do it. Now, often I prefer not to have sculpted eyebrows on a female character because, again, it looks like a lot. There have been occasions where I've had them and I've filed them off. Especially if you do, like, so with a male eyebrow, you can, like, go dark line around that and make it more intense and that kind of thing. But usually just doing some shading under the brow ridge is enough to give the impression of eyebrows on a gaming scale miniature, female miniature, or feminine miniature. But again, because she's a different kind of character, sometimes that's a way to make a character kind of like more interesting or less like you combine traits that you would do on something male and female or monstrous and human. You have a little bit from column A and a little bit from column B, and it can kind of capture the impression you're going for a little more. So I don't know if I feel like those eyebrows are a little light, but we can revisit that when I do the hair. I do feel like I should do something with her mouth at this time. I normally leave mouths until the very end. And then I'll, like, especially for feminine characters, I'll try and work the lip color in with something else that I've done on the miniature. So I'll be waiting in case I use any like reddish things or purplish things or whatever that I could use on the lips, colors like in the clothing or something. But because there is stuff like in front of her face that I have to paint, I think I would be smarter to paint her mouth now and not get stuff all over my nicely painted pearl doing it at the end or something. Zachary M. I had to make some alien faces look more human to get the expressions to read well. The Reaper Astral Reavers, both original and new. Yeah, we see faces easily, but there are certain things that, like, they can be different enough from what we're used to. Like, there'll be certain animals that, you know, you feel like they're cranky or happy. Like, what are those little guys that everyone says are really happy? And they do actually seem like they're really happy because they will hang out with anybody, it seems like. Quaggas? They're some kind of South American mammal, I think. And then one of the reasons I love red pandas so much is because they have that cranky look, because the way their fur pattern is makes them look like they have little cranky eyebrows, and it cracks me up. They also kind of stomp around like they're a little cranky too. I mean, honestly, our zoo is a world-renowned facility for raising young ones and stuff, like helping with the red panda breeding program and whenever the zookeeper gets asked, she's like, they do not want you to hug them. They do not care about you at all. They like snacks. They like being on their own. They are completely not, like, they're not animals that get attached to their keeper or whatever. Where some of the birds and stuff get distraught over the weekend when their favorite zookeepers go home or something. So, alas, red pandas are not invested in us in any way. But that's okay. All right, I gotta stop fussing with the face. I said I was gonna do the mouth. And where did my color mix go? Oh, in case anyone wants a little check-in, there's the kitties. Now they're being circles. Well, I think one of them is hiding her face from my horrible lights that do not assist with napping at all. I don't know. See, this is the other reason it was probably good that I did the lips now, is it made me feel like, as much as she's kind of tilting her face down and I don't want to highlight her jaw like a lot, it probably needs more than what I did. And I might even need a little more still. Yeah, definitely don't want to be painting anything on this face after I moved on to more outward objects. I'm going to go with this, she's got like more blue-violet in the skin, so I'm going to go with this more red-violet, bruise purple, and then try the, what did I pick out? Doxy Blush is that lighter color. Now, is she under the water? And she probably wouldn't have the lip reflection like this. But yeah, whatever. I'm not going to worry about it for now. It would probably be very cool to paint like a, you know, the way light filters through water kind of reflection or whatever. But that is not something that I'm going to attempt to figure out without a little more planning and testing. Derek has some miniatures that he painted that way. I think it's like a little diorama. I don't think there's a picture on the Reaper store. I could be wrong. Because I think it was a diorama rather than the two figures individually. She's got a little bit of a Joker thing going on, which is, you know, not inappropriate for the characterization, so I'm not going to worry about that. Fast progress for me, Reaper miniatures. I'm sure that, you know, probably Luca on Wednesdays just bing bang booms them out way faster than I do. I'm so slow. Which I guess that's probably part of the advantage of painting something that isn't supposed to be perfectly pretty, is mistakes can sometimes just get excused away as the ugliness, the desired ugliness, or creepiness, or whatever. Her lips are pretty bright. I might have to tone that back down, but all the paint is wet right now. All right, the hair probably is what makes sense next. And Zachariah says that Luca did some tabletops slower than normal today. Is he not feeling well? Just to help everyone else feel a little better, maybe? Yeah, people who paint a lot can get pretty zippy. I'm adding a little more water to my palette. Now, this is, you notice that these ones that are mostly still drops are very fluid, and these ones where I did the mixing are very not. And that's just how wet palettes are. So my way of mixing is not ideal for use on a wet palette. It's probably better if you're one of these people who can mix on the brush. I am not. I don't see the colors that way. So I just live with the paint drying out, and then I have to make more. And that's just life. So I like this rotting wood color, if you came in a little later, but it is kind of transparent, which is nice if I was using it as shading, and I will at some point. But I kind of have a similar color if I mix, this is olive green, and this is nightshade purple. If I mix those together, I can kind of get a similar color. And because there is white in, so it's not as, it's going to be less saturated because I'm mixing, the more things you mix together, the less saturation you have. But so I don't want to be quite as dark as that anyway, because I do want to use some of that as the shade, I think. And then I have this olive green and another one for more highlighty things, Knoll Pelts. That clearly I needed to shake a little more even. This is, I see why I normally use my shaker before I start the show. If I weren't wanting to, not waste your time, I would mix that back into my bottle. You don't have to, I mean, it's not the end of the world, but I like to. Ah, there's the other brush. Oops. All right. Now I'm making a bunch of noise as well as a bunch of mess. Oh, and I disturbed the kitties. All right, she took her head down, but she was looking up for a minute. She's like, shh, I'm trying to sleep over here. Although, I'm very surprised that they are still trying to sleep over there because it is after kitty dinner time. And believe me, they like kitty dinner time. Oh, I said the hair actually, didn't I? Oh, we're going to use similar colors. I'll put a little bit on here. And let's start adding just a little bit of brighter green and see what happens. So, Zachariah, have you taken any like photos of the swatches? Or the swatch array? So I'm ignoring the texture of the scales for now. I actually think I'm going to find it easier to just go back in and draw between the lines than to fuss about it now. I could be wrong, but that is my theory. Oh, you sent me a Facebook Messenger. Okay. I decided to turn off notifications while I was streaming because I think sometimes my watch is in view and nobody needs to know how many spam text messages I'm getting. It's a lot. I think the spam phone calls have finally died down again. I don't know what I did to get on somebody's list a few months ago, but it was like just a completely insane amount of spam phone calls for a while, which I don't answer the phone as a rule. I think my phone message even is like, I'm not going to answer the phone, leave a message. I said it a little nicer than that, but that's basically my phone message. The swatches are on a magnetic board, skew on the front of the card, paint name on the back. Oh, so you can pull them off and kind of test your color schemes and stuff. That is great. I love it. I love it. But I guess we all know, like, I'm kind of a swatch lunatic. All right, I got that purple out for a very specific reason that I no longer recall. Maybe it was this kind of knot knee join area. Oh no, are you guys on the move? Nope, you're coming back to hang out with your sister. Oh, no. Nope. Oh my gosh. Do you even know how to cat? There you go. They are not the most coordinated cats ever. At all. They are really not. The other day, one was walking along this, like the side of something, and it was 3 or 4 inches wide. And then she just started falling over. So I like put my hands out and grabbed her, and I got all scratched, of course. But it was like, what are you doing? Just flopped over to the side. Like, do you even know how to cat? I'm just really not sure sometimes that they do. So my theory is that Mama Cat must teach them something in those first few weeks. Something about how to be coordinated. And these guys got bottle fed and they did not learn the something. They did not learn the something at all, did you, bud? Although Archer used to do this thing where if he was on your lap, gravity was your problem. Like you were just supposed to hold him up or whatever. So he wasn't like necessarily uncoordinated in general. He just, was delegating gravity responsibility when there was a convenient human. And sure, why wouldn't you? All right, now that it's a little dry, I think we might need a bit more of the lighter colors. And go ahead and like deliberately be not entirely symmetrical or whatever to try to make him look a little shiny. And do I do some of the even lighter ones still? Maybe just a little. said I was actually going to paint hair, and then I didn't at all paint hair. I did lure them up there with catnip, in case anyone was wondering. Hey, Gmano8631, thanks for joining us. It's not like they don't like to have naps, though, so I was really just encouraging them on where to have the nap today. Oh, I guess I should probably paint the skin on the rest of her body, but you know. Should I? I don't know. Yeah, I probably should. If I can resurrect the paint enough to do it. Oh, it's still gray in there. Sometimes you get these like little spots that are just weirdly hard to reach with the brush. And that is when I like, this is actually too new of a synthetic brush probably. Well, it's got a little bit of a hooky. So I like a good hooky brush to get in those weird little crevices. Sometimes I get very tragic when my hooky brush dies. I still feel like it looks light in here too. So I'm going to get a dab of that nightshade purple. Sometimes it's just like reflections, and this happens to me a lot when I'm painting, where I'm like, is it actually lighter in there? Is it just reflections? Sometimes I have to move it around a lot to be able to tell. All right, what can we do with these skin colors? Since as mentioned, I don't use wet palettes the way you're supposed to. One of my many flaws. There's that cat hair. I knew it would show up somewhere. Like there was only one, because after, so I normally dust like all the video equipment and my desk and stuff before I start getting everything out to do the show every week. Because I don't, ever since we got rid of carpets, we get dust so fast. It's just ridiculous. So I'd done all that, and then I'm like, well, now I'll have lunch. And then, of course, while I'm having lunch, Corman jumps up on the desk where I dusted everything and generously shares his hair with us. So, and he is the fine floaty type of hair that is, well, I've seen worse. Like it's not, he doesn't have the worst of the fine floaty type of hair that is agony for painters. But it is different than most of my cats have had more of a sleek. Yeah, just dark color. I know they're not shiny, but like somehow my eye believes that they're shiny, and I have trouble seeing where they are and where they aren't sometimes. So if I've only found one hair today, I actually think that that's pretty good, because Corbin was trying to share a lot more than one. She's got a bit of her hair is hanging down right there. And then I guess these are sort of like gills maybe. Or, you know, she's like, she's not meant to be a lush looking person. So looking a little bit starved would be very in character. There's a little bump there that I suspect is some texture that I added and is not on the miniature. But we're going to consider it like she's got a skin condition among her many other problems. And just leave it there. This hand is very shadowed. I mean, it's under the pearl. It's under the moray eel. I will probably bring out the fingers just a little. Hands to me are a little bit like faces, where I might exaggerate the lightness a little. So I don't like totally want to draw attention to that because, you know, it is under a bunch of things. But I want to give the hand a little bit of a gesture. And someday I'll figure out where her other hand is, but not today. Oh, I did not add anything to this part of the tail that I keep forgetting about. I'm kind of going back and forth a little between a more skin versions that have a little more magenta and that have a little more blue purple, and it probably doesn't make any difference, but I can hope that it's adding a little visual variety, but I'll probably come back through and do that with glazes or something. Value is really so much more important than getting a color exactly right. Hi, baby. Do you need to go tell Kevin about how it's dinner time? Yeah? Oh, I know. I'm not fixing all your problems. It must be pretty terrible. Mm-hmm. You're funny, Tabby. No, I cannot pick you up right now. I know that you do not like to accept no as an answer. Months after my last kitty died, it's okay, I'm doing well, and I woke up with a cat toy in my blanket, and I'd swear this toy was in another room, but hey, my memory is only so good. Hi. Hi. Sorry, I took sound off for a minute to ask my husband to feed the sadness. She bugs me about all her problems, I think. Most of the cats know to go to Kevin for food and snacks. He's way softer touch than I am. I've had cats a long time. I'm used to the sad little faces that try to convince you they're going to perish of hunger. It's like, yeah, guy, sure. Now, do I spoil them in literally every other way possible? Yes, 100% yes. but I can't resist a hungry face. I think that's because the first cat I had as an adult, we used to say she vultured. Like she'd sit on top of the sofa and kind of lean over and stare at you while you were eating at the dining room table. She was doing this whole vulture pose. So I got pretty good at just ignoring that and enjoying my dinner. Alright. I guess her little fins should probably match the tail. So I might not paint them today, but I'm going to paint them green so that I don't forget my decision the next time I paint them. And then she had some here. And here. And am I missing another one? Hopefully not. So I mixed that nightshade purple and some of my greens to make a dark color. I'm just trying to get that in some of the deeper hair spots. So for people who came in a little later, I'm painting a creepy mermaid for Mermaid. So in the Reaper world of Adon, this is one of the ways that the goddess Mersaluth can appear. This is her less attractive form. And she's described as having, hair like wet seaweed. And I didn't actually describe skin color. I decided that pale and pasty made sense with the other colors, and looked up some more eels. So I have to, so the pearl's gonna be black, a black pearl, it's gonna be pearlescent. So I kind of have to balance out, it's lighter here, it's darker there, so that you can have a better chance at looking at it and going, oh, okay, this is, this is the mermaid, this is the eels, that kind of thing. Especially if you're seeing her on a tabletop rather than on a screen where she's a bit bigger. So for miniature painting, we tend to get really focused on talking about contrast between how dark are the shadows and how light are the highlights. And that's very important. And there's a lot of reasons why we do want to exaggerate that. But sometimes contrast between sections doesn't get enough discussion, I think, and it's a very useful way to help people look at a miniature, or even, you look at something more complicated like a diorama, and get what's happening more quickly without having to, take a closer look. Because sometimes people won't take a closer look. They're not always going to go, well, I can't tell what's happening. I'm going to look at this for a longer time and see if I can figure it out. Sometimes they just move on to the next thing. So you want to give people as much information as you can to understand who a character is, what they're doing, that kind of thing. And then especially a scene before they just give up and go look at something else, basically. Hey, Midwest Miniature Guy. Thank you. I hope you're doing well, too. I've got a chronic pain problem, and it's been acting up a little bit. It's actually been better than I hoped this session when I was setting up and trying to figure out the camera and lights that I did not manage very well. it was getting pretty achy, and I was like, oh, I thought I was feeling a bit better, but maybe I was wrong. But so far, so good. But alas, it has been limiting how much I paint outside of streaming and other stuff. All right, there's the hair that I'm looking for. I guess I need to figure out how to get a heating pad set up over here, because generally that is my answer. I bake the paint away. I like a nice, if I like anything barely legal, it's a heating pad. Just this side of may explode in an electrical fire is how hot I want my heating pads. I got, they were having a special on, you get the massage with, like, they add heating and cooling creams and towels and stuff like that. And he was all like, is this towel too hot? And I'm like, there is no such thing. Hit me. I mean, that's not true. I've given myself heat rash, so like you can totally be too hot. But Midwest Miniature Guy has been dealing with horrible right side sciatica pain for about a month, so I can commiserate you. Oh yeah, sciatica pain is bad. I did find, physical therapy didn't work that great for me on that one, but traction, which includes those gadgets where you can kind of hang backwards at a slope, and you don't have to go like backwards. 15 degrees is enough to be helpful, but just take the pressure off the spine. That, like, I had some bad sciatica a few years ago, and it just wasn't clearing up, and I was really getting fed up with it. Well, it wasn't bad, but it was continuous was the bad part, I guess. And I had done traction like years and years ago after having neck problem from a car accident. And so I said something to the physical therapist. I'm like, look, okay, whatever's happening here is not working. Do you have a way to do traction? And it, like, within a couple sessions, loosened it up. Like, I guess the nerve was literally stuck between something. Gravity is a harsh mistress, not just for these uncoordinated cats that you saw earlier. That are now gone because my husband did feed them, and they're very excited about that. Wet food time. It's very exciting. Unless they get there and then they're like, oh, but I don't like that flavor. It's like, well, you liked it last week. I don't understand. I am once again not letting paint dry. Don't do what I do. Do what I say. Let your paint dry. So I guess I'm not supposed to make her hair too shiny, which is painful for me. I like painting nice shiny hair. Like, all my miniatures look like they should be in a shampoo commercial. That's the goal I'm going for. But she's supposed to have hair like dead seaweed or something. So I probably better tone it down. I mean, this is not toned up yet. I would go way higher than that if I was trying to make shiny, healthy hair. So we'll see where this is. Because, yeah, this part I feel like it still needs a little something. We'll add some, just an awkward hank of hair. But I want to get some of this green in because it's nice and gross. And it's not like seaweed is gray, so. Okay, there's probably gray seaweed, there's gray everything, but I'm pretty sure a lot of it is not gray. Did I paint that shoulder? No. Should I paint that shoulder? Probably. All right, let me look without my magnifier thing. It looks more exciting on the video than it does in person, so I might still have to punch it up a little. Prince Paradox wants shiny hair. Green User says seaweed can be shiny. And Midwest Miniature Guy learned how to paint hair from your tutorials and now teach it that way on my stream. Prince Paradox looks like my ex. Does your ex have a giant black pearl and some moray eels? But yeah, she's got a very probably don't want to date her vibe going on. I have painted super shiny hair in previous streams, I believe, since that is my normal thing to do. So let's take some of this green. This is where the hair highlights get a little trickier because that's going to be more opaque than the green. So it's going to be very easy to look like too much. But then I will just come back in with more green. So part of what does the shiny is keeping it to fairly small areas. And part of what does the shiny is having darker parts, especially if you can put the darker parts near the lighter parts. That the human eye tends to interpret that as shiny. So I just want to catch the tops of this hair texture. If it was a different kind of hair, like the kind Bob and Julie, who are in chat, usually paint, I would paint a little more of the bright around there. But because there's such deep valleys in between the locks, like I think it'll look weird if I go too light. But what I can do is lighten up some of the shadows there. Oops, yeah, I forgot about this color. Let's use this color. So that'll make it look a little less, no, maybe that color's too much. A little less inset and deep if I lighten up those things and give more of that crown of the head thing. That's where the shininess tends to be concentrated, around the crown of the head. We all have built-in crowns. We don't have to be royalty. Is it too easy to make a pun? Oops, what did I just do? Just sploosh my paintbrush on something. Figure it out later. This crevice is very deep, so I'm just kind of faking a hank of hair. Yeah, right there, something similar. Maybe right there. So I'm coming back over like the shinier highlight spots. Depending on the colors, sometimes you just have to do it that way. And now I just need to work it in a little more. bright color, which is fairly transparent, probably because I did not shake it well enough. I should have just annoyed you guys with my vortex mixer. When I am having my paint problems, my hands are a big problem area. So painting generally isn't too bad because, you know, I don't death grip a paintbrush. But shaking paint is not great. Sometimes this is one of the few things I can do when my hands are being dumb. But then, you know, if my hands are being dumb, probably my back is being dumb. Then that's a different problem. It's great getting old. I totally recommend it. I think I saw a place that was, yeah, there we go. There's a place that's not mixed in very well. I don't want it to look like paint. I want it to look like stringy seaweed hair. Now, what do we think of her eyebrows? I don't know. I still feel like they should be darker. Yeah, let's do some of the dark. Just do a little bit of highlight on the curve, which is really expressing her contempt nicely, I think. And then it turns out that she has hair in like 4 other places. So, hi, hello. Your dinner did not satisfy your need to tell me to do stuff? Oh, I know. You're very sad. I cannot pick you up right now. You can see how accustomed she is to taking no for an answer. Yeah, I know. You don't normally take no for an answer. Please don't jump on the paint desk. I know that you really want to. But you are none of these colors, and I think we should keep it this way. Gray Mouser, Zachariah. There's some punniness happening. I guess I've just been into the Under the Sea miniatures lately. I'm not sure she could be friends with Starburst. I don't really see them getting along. I think she would just mock poor Starburst and his sunny outlook. So this part I don't want to make like too distractingly shiny. It's lower down, it wouldn't be getting as much light. And I just don't want people spending a lot of time looking there. This is the kind of miniature that is very challenging for my brand of ADHD because it's like, oh right, over there is tail, over there is hair, over there is some other thing that I have forgotten to paint. Like there's got, yeah, that shoulder. I still didn't paint the shoulder. Let's see if the paints are alive enough to do anything over there. It's not going to need a ton. Susan B. Anchovy. Just want to get enough of a highlight to suggest that it's a curve. You know, like a semi-circle, sphere type thing. And I'm being impatient again because I have nowhere else I need to paint skin, so it's not drying. Put a little more of that blue in there, I think. All right, I'm going to take another distance look at it. I really feel like that green is way more intense on the video than to my eyes. And I might need to make it that intense to my eyes. Because it's, you know, it's that kind of, on the video it looks like that kind of green that we think of as like radioactive and sewer sludge and whatnot. Yes, world saddest kitty. That isn't really even remotely that. Oh my goodness. I don't know if you guys can hear her sad little baby cat voice. Oh my goodness, kitty. Is your life this bad? No. Oh, if you come from a different angle, you might get a different answer. You're still going to jump on something, aren't you? Oh, she's playing with her sister's toy. That's funny. Her sister is like super into these little pom-pom things. She like bats them around the house and talks to them. But this one normally ignores them. So yes, I rarely do washes for this type of scale texture. The wash isn't going to get dark enough, and then the dry brushing isn't going to get light enough. And then I'm just unhappy either way. So I just do this. But now I'm having trouble remembering which direction I already went in to do the crisscrossies. I want the darker color. I will also customize the color to, you know, the value to the value of whatever I'm painting it over. So where it's in the shadows, I'm using that Nightmare purple. And where it's not in the shadows, I'm using my darkest green, which is Nightmare Purple plus one of my other greens. You can totally use Nightmare Purple as a black substitute. I think one of the what are they called? Fast paints, quick paints. There's like kobolds, goblins, and zombies. And one of them, I think it's zombies, uses the Nightmare Purple as black. Because I try to not duplicate paint colors in those too much so that they're not unattractive if you've already... hi, do you have to play right on my foot? And the answer is yes. So I do think about that when I make the color choices for the paint kits. But then some stuff, like I tried making the kobolds with, I can't remember if it was like copper or bronze or some non-steel weapon, and Ron felt like people would think that was weird. All right, and she's got more scales over here that I should not forget about. Again. So I'm not going to line between where the body and the scales join. If anything, I should try to somehow make that more continuous, like bring a little green in to the skin area or something to make it look more natural. And that's kind of interesting. I may have to add green elsewhere on her skin. And Ron wasn't too fond of the blue metal I did on the Knolls, but others like it. Yeah, he's got his ideas of what certain things look like. So sometimes he does not care. He's just like, just make it look cool. But sometimes it's a creature from, his distant D&D playing past that he pictures in a very specific way. And he's the boss, so then that's how we do it. So I don't think we're getting to the eels until another day. I'm surprised that Queenie hasn't said it. Oh, she did. There we go. Queenie did say time check. But let me just let me see if I can find my picture that doesn't show the picture. So the picture is missing here. But these are the colors. This is the eye of the eel, which is quite big. I don't know if these guys have big giant eyes like the one that I saw. But it had like little spots of these colors, and they looked orange. But I did little samples of various colors on my iPad to double check, because I will often not see the correct, like color proximity makes colors look different colors than they might actually be. So this is why I checked, because I was picking out all these oranges. And I may, so there's the Doxy Blush is that one. I may end up deciding that I do want the orange, but then there was this, really dark, slightly blue-violet up against that, and it just looks so velvety. And also, like, it would probably be creepy, and it's going to contrast with her a lot. So hopefully that'll be cool. Ron, Zachariah is agreeing that Ron is pretty traditional, and he did say not to change them because he felt sorry for me after a million changes. Yeah, I don't... usually he just lives with whatever I do that I did not get the way he thought it would be. Now there's certain things, like I know if it's something like an orc or a goblin or something, I check. I usually check in general. I'm like, do you have some specific vision for this that I might not know because I have not memorized any of the monster manuals or whatever. So I do check with him as a rule now, after having made mistakes. But there was the black bear incident. Was probably the most notable one, and I painted a black bear like cinnamon brown, and I totally found photos of black bears that look cinnamon brown, and he was just completely flummoxed, and I'm like, I have like at the time I think we still had our black dog, or we hadn't lost him that long previously. I'm like, all of our pictures of our black dog are like a black blob holding whatever color toy it is. Like black, it's really hard to keep it black and bring out the textures and make things look interesting and stuff. So I was just like, well, let's do this other cool color that's not even black. And he did not, even with the explanation, he did not understand where my mind went. He's like, but it's called a black bear. And I'm like, yes, but they aren't all black. And like, I just painted another one black because he was just not coping with it. Somewhere, Cinnamon Bear is still in the display cases. I think I didn't reclaim him. When I goofed up the cobra, I just kept it. Like, he was so distraught about that, and then like a million years later, I finally painted him a correct color cobra. So I still have the blue-green one. And he now has a very, brown, beige, brownie one. Like, whatever floats your boat. But I will take pity on Quindy, who's going to find us a raid. And it's still going to be Mermaid next week, so I'll probably work on the moray eels then, because that's going to be like a totally different color thing. It'd be fun to find out. But as ever, if there's something particular you want to see, let me know in a DM if you don't feel comfortable saying it in chat. And I'll see you next time after Quindy picks a raid. Here we go. We're going to raid Exploding Dice. Ooh, that sounds exciting. So say hi, spread the Reaper love, and I'll see you next week. I hope everyone has a good week. Thanks, everyone.